So today we're going to talk about chlorine. And we're going to talk about how chlorine is used to disinfect our drinking water. In this glass of water here, there's probably chlorine present because it comes from a municipal drinking water service. And that means a public water supply. So if you pay a monthly water bill, yours probably has chlorine in it too. How can you tell? I have a chlorine reagent pack here, and you can get all different types of chlorine detector reagents. You probably pick them up at Menards, or definitely on Amazon you can. So if there's chlorine in this pack will turn the water pink. Look at that, definitely chlorine in the water. So today we're going to discuss why it's used. We're also going to discuss what the EPA and your state regulatory agencies say about using chlorine in drinking water. And we're going to discuss any types of long or short-term health effects. So we use chlorine in our drinking water to disinfect the water. So prior to 1908 in the United States, there was a problem with waterborne diseases. And in 1908 in New Jersey, it was the first time in the US we decided to use chlorine to try and disinfect the water. And we were going after and targeting the bacteria that lead to viruses such as Legionnaire's disease and typhoid fever. Once we started adding chlorine to our water, we noticed a huge drop in people contracting waterborne diseases. This minimized the health risk so much that as it became prevalent in most of the water systems in the US, by the 1970s, the EPA actually implemented an act that forced water supplies to use it. So I operate a small system here in Indiana, and not only are we regulated by the EPA, but also by IDEM. The EPA now regulates the use of chlorine in public water supply systems. They require you maintain at least a 0.2 parts per million residual by the time you reach the farthest point in your system. And they say not to exceed the dose of 4 parts per million. Just like anything else with the government, water supply is heavily regulated. And the goal of this is to protect the water consumers. I see a lot of buzz on the internet about chlorine in drinking water, and a lot of people say it's definitely bad for you to drink water with chlorine in it. So I've done a lot of research because this is something that, with me being a water operator, I care a lot about. So as I've combed through all of the EPA and IDEM regulations here in my state, and I look what people are saying online from different scientific studies, it seems like chlorine alone is fairly safe, and that's before it's combined with anything, as long as you stay under that 4 parts per million that the EPA regulates. Most water supply systems here in my state, just talking with other operators in the system I run, usually to maintain a 0.2 parts per million at the farthest point in their system have to pump out around 1 part per million. To give you an example of how small of a portion a part per million is, 1 part per million is the equivalent of 1 second in 11.5 days. One thing I'm not positive of is I don't know where the 4 parts per million regulation came from. I don't know what study produced that amount was safe. My assumption is always that the safe action level is much, much lower than any type of level they've found in a study to actually show signs and symptoms. What I do know is that I haven't found anything that says under 4 parts per million is actually still bad for you. The one thing I did find is chlorine is the most dangerous when it combines with organic material. And this happens way more commonly in surface water systems than groundwater systems. So the difference between that is groundwater systems have a well that draws water from an underground aquifer. And this water, before it gets to that underground aquifer where the well is picking it up, has been filtered pretty extensively just from the ground as it travels down to the aquifer. Not saying it can't pick up contaminants on its way, I'm just saying it acts as a natural filter. Where surface water is drawn, in some cases, right off of a lake or a river. And this most definitely has organic material in it. As we know, our lakes and rivers have all sorts of things. Probably the most natural among all those would be vegetation that would be pumped through our water treatment facility. And if that is not filtrated properly, and we don't remove all of that organic material, that decaying vegetation can be the organic material that chlorine combines with to form trihalomethanes. And trihalomethanes are a combination of chlorine and organic material, and it is known to be cancerous. The most common trihalomethane that most of you probably know is chloroform. So you see people, they have a rag in a movie and they pour something on it and they put it over someone, it knocks them unconscious. That's probably chloroform. Chloroform is a known carcinogen, known to cause cancer. Now the EPA has made a movement to monitor and regulate the formation of trihalomethanes in drinking water systems. The threshold for that EPA has set is 80 parts per billion. What's crazy is you think about chloroform and you think, wow, that does sound bad, that sounds dangerous. It was used during the Civil War to put people out for surgery. It's obviously not used anymore because we know of all the long and short-term health effects that it might cause to us, and we know it could be toxic and cause central nervous system issues. So we don't use it anymore, but now we are concerned about the formation of it in our water where, back years ago, we used it to put people unconscious for surgery. This just goes to show that as science evolves and we learn more, some things that we don't think have health risk now, we might find out in the future they do, or vice versa. I do believe that the people that work for these agencies, like the EPA and your state agencies, are just people like us, and they're trying to do their best because just like us, they're probably water consumers too. So I know in Indiana, and I think most states, require each public water supply system to put out a consumer confidence report every year. This will detail all their analysis and studies they've done on their water system throughout the year, and will tell you if they've exceeded any levels set forth by the regulatory agency. So I encourage you to not only view this data and check this report every year, but if you have certain concerns, call and talk to your public water supply system. If they're anything like the neighboring operators in our state that work around me or the water supply system I work for, we're happy to put people's mind at ease and do our best to provide clean and safe drinking water. Now, if this scares you a lot and you don't trust in regulatory agencies at all, then just get you a whole home filtration system. So chlorine's easy to take out. And if you're just gonna be drinking that water that you take chlorine out of, just put you a carbon filter on one sample port that's for you to drink. But if you're worried about trihalomethanes, which is where I think the real exposure is, you're gonna have to have a whole home filtration system because that stuff doesn't just pose a risk through ingestion. You can also inhale trihalomethanes in the shower through steam. You can get absorption through your skin whenever you're washing your hands. So if you don't trust the regulations set before through any public water supply systems, you're gonna need a whole home filtration system. But guys, you need to make the decision that seems right for you. I only did this as an informational video. I didn't do this to try and persuade you one way or another. I did it to try to instill faith in the public water supply systems out there. But if you don't trust that, I don't blame you. Now's a scary time to live, and there's all types of dangers and threats that exist in our daily lives. And the stuff you put in your body is a huge concern to not only you, but me and everyone else. So do your own research. Just use this as one research video, but don't stop here. Watch more. Read articles. I do hope this gave you something to chew on, though, and I hope that it will help you in your understanding of how chlorine is used in our water supply systems. Until next time, guys.